This is Malachi Bishop with the Rehab Counseling Program at the University of Kentucky, and this is RC-650, Rehab Counseling Theories and Techniques 1. Today we're going to be talking about reality theory, which has roots in, is the root of, and has been further developed in terms of choice theory and control theory. We're going to be talking about reality theory today. Reality theory developed by Glasser and originally talked about in his 1965 book. Glasser, since 1965, has worked to continue to develop his theory, and we're going to talk a little bit about that process of development. But we're going to focus on reality theory today, in which the underlying problem of all people was seen as the same. In the original presentation, Glasser said that the underlying people of all people is the same. They are involved in an unsatisfying relationship, or they lack a relationship, and for theory to be successful, therapists must guide the client to a satisfying relationship, teach the client to behave in more effective ways. And the key terms we're going to be talking about when we talk about reality theory: the idea of needs, the idea of choice, that we have the ability to choose effective ways to meet our needs, and this idea of responsibility, which is the meeting the personal needs without harming self or others. So key concepts in reality theory. Key concept number 1, needs. Again, in 1965, when he first presented his theory, Glasser said, regardless of how he expresses his problem, everyone who needs psychiatric treatment suffers from one basic inadequacy: he is unable to fulfill his essential needs. And Glasser said that people are not born as blank slates. We are born with some basic genetically encoded needs. So these needs are not externally motivated, and they are they do not develop in the environment necessarily, but we are actually born with some basic genetically encoded needs that drive us to behave. These needs are universal, but we experience them individually at different levels of strength. In his original presentation, Glasser stated the basic needs as being the need to love and be loved, and the need to feel that we are worthwhile to ourselves and others. In modern reality therapy, we talk about 5 needs. The original needs ideas are still there, but we talk about the 5 basic needs as being love and belonging, so participating and belonging to a social network, belonging at work and with our family, so having relationships where we can experience and give love and belonging. And the second need is the need to survival. Third need is power, which is defined in terms of competence, recognition, self-esteem, and the capacity to plan and follow through. So the power to direct our lives. Freedom and autonomy, the freedom to make choices about our lives, and fun and enjoyment, learning, play, laughter, enjoying life. So we have these basic needs. We are faced with the problem of learning to fulfill these genetically encoded basic needs in infancy, and we continue this learning process throughout our lives. Ideally, we will learn to meet our needs in ways that are effective and responsible. But if we do not, then we will suffer due to the irresponsible attempts to fulfill needs. If a child is not fulfilled in the need to give and receive love, he or she may spend the rest of his or her life unsuccessfully trying to love and get love. So, developmental perspective there. Key concept number 2, the brain as control system, and the idea here is that the brain acts like a thermostat. Thermostat senses the environment, and when the air in the environment gets too warm or too cool, when there's too much of a gap between where you want to be and where you are, where the temperature is ideal and where the temperature actually is, then the thermostat kicks on the heater or the air conditioner. So in a similar way, the brain recognizes gaps between our ideal and between our needs and the level to which our needs are being met. When we feel bad, it means that a need is being unmet. When we meet the need, we feel better. So the brain has helped us to take some action to get the need met, and then we feel better. Pain, psychological pain, is the result of a frustrated need. And we are driven by the pain of unmet needs to reach and maintain a state of homeostasis. So the brain acts as a control system, like a thermostat. Key concept 3, the idea of a quality world. This idea, from the time we are born, we learn what it is that will satisfy our needs. So we have 5 needs. We said that everybody has the same 5 needs, but we experience them to different degrees or at different levels. But we have also individually learned the ways that that we can meet our needs or get our needs met. So if we have learned that the way to have fun and enjoy life is to participate with others in sports, for example, that's one way we have fun, then that we can get that need met in ways that are, when we think about meeting that need, we have pictures in our head that might include like team sports, PE, being in the gym, pictures like that, and those ways of meeting our needs go into our photo album. As we learn what these ways of satisfying our needs are, we develop a photo album or a picture in our heads of how we want our needs fulfilled, how we think our needs are fulfilled, and how to get there. So really the idea of the quality world is our view of what will enable us to meet our needs and be happy. And it is the idea is that it is a picture or a set of pictures that show the world that we would like to live in. It contains pictures in our minds of people, roles, activities, beliefs, and values that represent our ideal, the world we would like to live in. If all our needs were being met the way we would like them to be met, then this is what the world would look like. It is the filter through which we see our needs and they're being met. So it is our idea of how these needs are met, and it is the individual, unique to us perspective. So other people may find ways of having fun and enjoying life very different from the person who has the pictures of the team sports, for example. All right, this interesting perspective of reality theory that that we actually choose behavior, including behavior that includes things like depression and anxiety. So the question is, why would we choose to be depressed? The answer is basically we choose behavior that will help us to meet a need. And if we have learned that the way to meet the need to be loved is to get a certain kind of attention, we've learned to choose to be depressed, so we will get attention in that way. We choose to be depressed, and when we are depressed, let's say people comfort us, people come and talk to us, people bring us things that will help us to try to help us feel better, and that attention helps us to feel loved, then that is a behavior that we will choose again in the future. So we interpret depression as meeting our need and getting us what we want. Again, we are not externally controlled, but we are responsible for choosing our own behavior. This is a multimodal approach. Total behavior is a key concept that Glasser talks about, and total behavior refers to behavior as a multimodal. Again, not just what we're doing physically with our bodies, but behavior includes what we're doing, thinking, feeling, and even our physiology or biology. So what's actually happening within our body. All of this is behavior. All of this is purposeful and meaningful. The purpose of behavior is to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be, or between wanting and getting, meeting our goal, getting our needs met. So we behave in order to get our needs met. The difference between what a person wants and what he or she perceives he or she is getting is the source of behavior. Other key concepts. I mentioned that associated with this theory is the idea that people have and make choices about their behavior, including choosing to depress ourselves, which Glasser referred to as depressing or guilting or anxietying ourselves. Because we are responsible for our behavior, if we are anxious, we are actually choosing anxiety. And because we are choosing that behavior, we can change that behavior. We can, through acting and thinking, change our feelings and our physiology. This theory is another theory where we tend to focus on the present. The past cannot be changed. We are not victims of the past unless we choose to be. So we would focus on the present, and we avoid focusing on symptoms. Rather, we would focus on the needs, the way that the person is trying to meet these needs. If that the way of meeting the needs is not effective, is not helping the person to meet the need in a way that is effective and helpful and successful for the person, then we would focus on changing the behavior so it would be more effective. But we're not going to spend a lot of time focusing on the consequences, the symptoms, the results of ineffective behavior. We're going to focus on changing the behavior. Mentioned the idea of responsibility. Again, something that Glasser has been talking about, focusing on from the beginning, from his 1965 introduction of this theory. Responsibility is the ability to fulfill one's needs and do so in a way that doesn't deprive others of the ability to meet their needs. Implications of responsibility: we cannot blame the past or outside forces, and at the same time achieve a high level of mental health. Okay, we have to take responsibility for our own behavior. In order to achieve mental health, we must accept responsibility for our behavior, choose to act in responsible ways to meet our needs. The therapeutic process to practice reality theory: we create a warm, trusting relationship with our clients. We develop a relationship with those characteristics and then implement procedures that lead to changes in behavior. And the process by which we evaluate and then affect or help people to affect effective change is through the WDEP system. The WDEP system, the W stands for discussing wants, needs, and perceptions. Questions related to that. The D refers to discussing behavioral directions and what the person is currently doing. The E refers to helping clients to conduct evaluations, and then P is planning. We're going to talk briefly about each of these individually. By suggesting some of the questions that you might ask. So in the WDEP process, you would start with the wants, needs, and perceptions. You would ask questions like, if you were the person you wish you were, what kind of person would that be? What would you be doing if you were living as you wanted? Do you really want to change your life? What do you want that you are not getting? And what stops you from making the changes that you want to make? In the D, direction and doing area, you might ask questions like, what is the direction of your life right now? Where are you heading? What are you doing now, right now? What is the behavior? What are you doing this week, in the present? What is the behavior that you are engaging in? And where are you heading? What do you see for yourself now and in the future? And what is this present behavior getting you? And what is your present behavior keeping you from? So what are the consequences of your current behavior? In the E, evaluation stage, we'll help clients to conduct the evaluation, explore the consequences, whether the behavior is getting them what they want, and if not, the consequences of their behavior. Clients will not change unless they see that a change is advantageous. All right, we keep doing what we're doing until we see that change will be better. So we help them to evaluate their thinking, feeling, behavior, and physiology. Evaluate total behavior and evaluate it with a focus on the future. If your present behavior is not leading you to where you want to be, how are we going to change? And then developing a plan and a plan of action. So planning and action, helping clients to identify specific plans for change. And plans in reality theory have some characteristics that we shoot for. They should be simple. The plan should be attainable. It should be well-defined and measurable. So a good plan would not be, I'm going to get in shape, because that is not really objectively measurable, attainable. It's too fuzzy. It's not really well defined. So we're looking for more simple, attainable, and measurable goals. There should be immediate behavior involved in reaching the goal. The client certainly has to be involved in the goal. The goal has to be something that the client has committed to and that the client has control over. So we want plans that are simple, attainable, measurable, immediate. The client is involved in the plan. The behavior is under the control of the client. So a good plan here again would not be to say, for example, I'm going to get promoted 2 times, because that may not be under the control of the client. A more behavior that would be under the control of the client would be, I'm going to work in such a way that it would be unlikely that I would not get promoted, because that behavior is under the control of the client. The plan should be repeated and have the commitment of the client. So questions you might ask about the plan: does the plan have the commitment of the client? Can it be carried out independently without help from others? Plans are processes. Applying for a job, exercise, changing eating habits. These are things that we are working toward. They are processes, and plans are immediate. What can you do right now, today? So techniques we talked about in reality theory: do the unexpected, suspend judgment, don't make snap judgments, don't make early decisions, suspend judgment, allow the process to evolve, do the unexpected, use humor, listen for metaphors, work with metaphors, be yourself as a therapist, be real, be honest, be willing to share yourself. Allow consequences, impose consequences, allow silence. We avoid punishing, criticizing, or arguing because they're not likely to be effective, and we don't accept excuses because, again, we don't want to focus on the excuse. If the behavior isn't working, then we're going to change it, but we're not going to talk about symptoms or excuses of the consequences, results of ineffective behavior. Let's just change the behavior and try and find a better way to work through this. So these are techniques from Webbelding, 1995. Webbelding, another name along with Glasser, highly associated with reality theory. So you can see reality theory, a lot of potential use in rehab counseling, a lot of rehab applications in the literature that you can find. Cognitive behavioral sort of approach, but sees behavior in terms of that total behavior, multimodal approach. I would say this is one of the more popular theories for use in rehabilitation counseling.